And hello, loves. Tonight we are working on some trailers. I thought that would be a fun reaction for tonight. Uh, so yes, thank you for coming. And if this is your first time being here, welcome. And if you are a returning viewer, highly appreciative. Either way, I would appreciate if you like and subscribe and comment any suggestions you have for me to react to. Please keep it Christian friendly. It does not have to be Christian content as long as it is Christian friendly, because I try to keep it not necessarily wholesome, but definitely within convictions, uh, manners, convictions, nope, within conviction's sake. Yes, but tonight we are working on, like I said, some trailers, but they are specifically trailers for upcoming Angel Studio projects. The one we are working on currently, that we are starting with, is called Brave the Dark, and it's supposed to be in theaters January 24th, so by the time this comes out, it might already be in theaters.
My father was an angry man.
Ooh.
Not a bad person, just like him.
Nathan Williams, you're under arrest.
I'm wondering if this is
Here to see Nathan Williams.
Are you family?
No, I'm his teacher.
legit issue, or if
You don't
he's
belong here, and we're gonna get you out. Do you have any family
being
I can
framed.
call?
Because more often than not, most people that come from families that have troubled fathers, more often than not, don't turn out to become people like them. A lot of times they can be warning signs. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but if I'm not mistaken, a lot of times when you have parents that are kind of like his father was already demonstrated, a lot of times you don't get into that. You use that as a warning not to. So I don't know. I'm thinking this might be a story of misunderstanding, or a yeah, I don't think our boy, just like the person said, belongs in there. Based on a true story, so that's always fun.
You have a convicted felon.
Okay.
Poor little homeless boy from a charity case. Would make you feel good? What?
You do realize that this is your only chance.
Screw you, dude.
Screw me.
So it's
really?
more so a redemption story of he's a good kid doing bad things.
You have brought him back here. What exactly do you know about this kid?
I'm a sucker for those, though.
I know he was living out of his car for 2 years, going hungry.
Inherited daddy's anger issues, we
This
see.
is not the same as being the teacher.
Stand on the chair. Take a deep breath. Stay your first priority.
And we always love a teacher putting in their extra effort to help a student needing it.
All of them?
The moment you graduate guarantees you serve the sentence in full.
You're trying to fix me? You know how many people have tried? Maybe we're getting somewhere. Come on, what else you got? Come on!
A liar, a loser. I've heard it all before.
You know, whether it's something your dad did to you or your mom didn't do, you got to deal
I'm wondering who this kid is. It's based on a true story, so I'm assuming they are famous of some sort.
I care that you don't go to prison. Some kids are born behind the 8 ball.
I can't do this. I'm cursed.
You're lying to me when you say everything's going to work out just fine. But don't those kids deserve the same chance as the others?
Okay, that was definitely excited to see that. And like I said, I'm curious to know who this kid is. Maybe it's just a somebody's story that is being told of someone we don't know. But if they are someone who is famous and this is kind of like a backstory for them, I would like to know who they are. That would be fun to know. Kind of like the whole Imagine movie, and how a lot of times there are like famous Christians, or I guess famous people in general, but I guess I'm more fond of the famous Christians' backstory of telling of like how they came to be. But yeah, I'm a sucker for these kinds of things. It takes a real dedicated and strong person. I don't even necessarily mean like if you can't handle this kind of person, you aren't strong, but I mean like physically strong, like someone who can handle themselves up against this, like this up against helping someone out, because as we've seen, kid has anger issues. So someone who is not able to defend themselves would probably not be the best candidate to help this kid out. But it's good to see somebody cared and had the gifts given to them, and I'm trying to think, the ability given them to be able to help this young boy out, because it's so sad when you see people who are struggling and are in bad situations, but they could be so much better. They just haven't had the right guiding. At the same time, that does not give permission. Bad past and like a bad environment growing up does not give you permission to behave in a harmful or criminal way towards others, especially. Like, you do not have any right to lay your hands on other people. Self-defense, different. Like, if somebody's trying to harm you and or your others, yeah, that is the only exception I find is okay to physically behave in a manner of hurting someone else. But beyond that, I don't see any. I'm a very much pacifist person. I don't think there's ever a right to lay your hands harmfully, and even mind your words. It's very hard to learn to mind your words, but that is definitely, like I said, behaving in a harmful manner, spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, towards another, is never permitted. No matter what your background is, you gotta work on that. And it's so sad when you see people who need the help to work on it. At the same time, like I said, there are like needs to be someone who is well equipped. That's the word, well equipped, to handle this. And it's nice that this boy got it. Hopefully, I assume it turns out well. Let's hope. Very much, especially being Angel Studios. Hopefully, boy gets redeemed. But let's go ahead and get on to the next one. This one is, let's see, The King of Kings. And this one comes out April 11th. Now, I assume this reaction should be out by then. If I'm not mistaken, should be out in February, this reaction. But being filmed in December, I'm trying to have a good old buffer for you guys, so I can actually have stuff up and ready for you guys without too much of a halt in between, besides my monthly breaks once a month. So yeah, but let's get on into this. This one's supposed to be Jesus. So yeah, let's get on into it and see what it is.
I'd like to tell you a story, son. Some say it's the greatest.
Okay, I really like the whole storytelling ones.
It has angels and wicked.
Not so much a fan of constantly having the story read, but when it's a story being read and we go into the story, I'm very fond of those.
Jealous rivals and miracles. Open your eyes. Our story begins 2,000 years ago. A young woman named Mary would soon bring a beautiful baby into the world.
Wait, well, stop. If it's not about a king, then I'm not interested.
It just so happens that this story is about a king. One prophecy speaks of.
Look, we're now over there.
I am a sucker for a good Jesus show and movie, so I am very excited for this one. Especially animated Jesus stuff, like, oh geez, or biblical stuff in general. When it's well done, especially, like, So I'm hoping this turns out like.
The Jews, it's what God wants. I'll accept it. And so should you.
Giving very much Superbook kind of vibes. If you've not seen that series, that one's actually pretty good. It's a kid series, and it's on CBS. I will put a link down below and the actual station right here. But it's about a couple kids and a robot that actually go into the Bible, and it's super fun. And they go back into the biblical stories, and this is very much giving that kind of vibe. I get it's being read to the kid, but seeing visually that the kid's in the story, it's giving very much Superbook vibes. I think that's the title of the show. I'm gonna feel so bad if it's not, but yeah. That and give me a second to think of it. It's an older one. I grew up on this one. Like give me a second. What is the name? Story Keepers. I want to say that's it. That's another one I'm going to put right here and a link in the bottom. And that one actually has free, like you can go to the channel and watch all of them for free. Same thing with Superbook. If you go on to the website of this or of that place, I want to say up to the first 3 seasons, maybe 4, are free. Honestly, if the new one is out, I might react to that if you guys want me to. It's a kid's show, so I don't know. It might be an occasional. I'm not seeing the first or the most current 2 seasons because I want to say season 4 was under a subscription pass that I didn't have because girl is very much finding free streaming, not illegal streaming services, but free streaming services. But yeah, if that is available, then I might react to that because that would be fun. Maybe do a rundown of the first few seasons and then into reactions. I don't know. But I think that would be fun because I need more reaction content. But yeah, Story Keepers, I want to say, is the other one where it actually takes place in AD, like early AD, to where the Christians were coming about, I want to say 60 AD-ish, to where it would have been around Paul's time and the New Testament time being bounced around, but after Jesus' resurrection, I want to say it is 60 AD, around that. Because a lot of the characters were talking about, like in the show, we're talking about being, I'm trying to think, seeing Jesus. So it's kind of like Roman time when, trying to think, when the Christians were hiding in Rome because they were being persecuted. It's a group of Christians that are telling stories, but this is like 90s, so it's a good show, but it's definitely aged as far as in the quality is not as high as we have now, but it is a very good, I have to say, get past the first episode or 2 is kind of a little bit flawed. You can pay attention to, or you can notice a little bit more flaws, but after that, the quality, it definitely ups as far as in not as much issues. But I have to say the voice acting, like, I don't know, it's a very comfort show. I definitely love watching it. Definitely very much comfort show, so I suggest that one as well if you are looking for, if you have kids or want just a comfort show to watch or something just to watch. Like I said, it's them telling stories kind of like this, but this one is in England. I'm assuming Victorian era, I want to say. I don't know, maybe 1800s, 1700s. But very much giving a cross between those vibes, which is funny because Superbook is futuristic and Story Keepers is past, and this is kind of like in between. But it's definitely looking good, and I'm hoping that, like I said, I love when we get some good quality biblical stuff.
Don't be afraid.
You really are the true King of Kings.
It's time.
Story told by Charles Dickens. That is interesting. I'm wondering if this is actually like how, like if this is an actual written I mean, I don't know how much it could be with it being biblical stories being told. But I'm wondering if this is an actual thing of Charles Dickens wrote, maybe the story around the stories. Cause kind of like Charles Dickens is the one that wrote, I'm trying to say, Scrooge? Is that it? The ones with the past, present, future things of Christmas. Past, present, future. Another thing I will have to put here because my brain is not thinking of it. I don't know. Or maybe they're just using his character as the one telling the story. I don't know. That's kind of interesting. I will have to look into this. But yeah, that is it for this one. And the final one, oh, this one looks good. Let me go ahead and click onto it, pause it so we can. Okay, this one is Gabriel and the Guardians. Oh, this one looks so fun. It looks like an anime type deal. I'm excited to see this one. This one looks fun. So we had 2 animated ones coming out that I had on here, and 1 live action, if that's how you refer to that. I don't know. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get on to this one. This one looks fun. Probably mostly, I'm trying to think, definitely a lot of artistic renditions of things, because we don't get a whole lot of stories of Gabriel and angels and stuff. So I'm interested how they're going to take it.
Gabriel, there is chaos in the mortal realm. A new breed of evil has emerged.
Really liking the anime style.
Of shadow and flesh. Nephilim.
And I do have to say, I'm very much, I love fantasy. I grew up with, like, fantasy was one of my favorite kinds of books to read. But I got out of fantasy, not willingly. I got out of fantasy, but not desire-wise. Like, I still love fantasy, but because it's so hard to find Christian-friendly fantasy, like basically without magic, without a lot of spice scenes, when it comes to a lot of adult stuff and even YA stuff. I was reading there's a lot of things I read in high school that I would not touch now. But it's so hard to find a good fantasy that aligns with Christian values. So I am really wanting more Christian fantasy, because I know it's easier to find Christian friendly fantasy when that is the intent being put into the fantasy, is that it is for a Christian audience, kind of like the Winged Feather Saga. I love the Winged Feather Saga, and it checks all those boxes of, it's one that really, I can't say really got me back into fantasy, because it's still hard to find fantasy, but really reminded me of why I loved fantasy, because it's a clean read as far as what I have read of it so far and what I've watched of it, because it's like kids stuff. It's Christian, so there's like not magic and stuff, at least not promotion of magic of what I have read so far. I have to keep saying what I've read so far and what I've watched. But this looks like it is very much getting into fantasy type vibes. And see, this is what I like to do with my stuff as well, because I'm dabbling in a fantasy type book, but it won't be out anytime soon. But I feel like as a Christian writer, the most easiest and fun ways to get into fantasy is to get into it from a spiritual aspect. With my main stuff in general that I have written, I try to give it some fantasy-ish vibes by digging into the spiritual side of things without getting into too much new agey, at least not promoting new age. Like when I try to touch on new age, I try to show like, hey, this is not a route you should be going in. At least that's my goal, what I'm trying to do. So them touching on Nephilim and the spirit, like angels and stuff, I think that's really fun and easy way to go into fantasy when it comes to Christian content. Like, because I mean, that is like, technically it's not fantasy if you are a Christian, because that's very much real, at the same time, it very much is fantasy vibes as far as in kind of like the whole, because I'm very much someone who likes to think about what's possibly out there. I'm not going to say I believe in every single thing that's out there, but as far as in thinking about what could be real and what could not be real, because the possibilities are endless when you have a God who creates all kinds of things and have bad things that creates lots of things. I mean, we had a lot of fallen angels that came down and messed with some genetics. So if mermaids and stuff like that exist, if fantasy-based creatures exist, there's probably a spiritual aspect to it. Or that's why, for me personally, you have to be careful with that. If I ever came across like a fantasy type creature, my first thought are you evil? Can I believe if that's the case or not? But yeah, so I'm excited because if this is an actual series or whatever, like, or even just a movie, and they like major fantasy vibes.
They are the unclean, and if they are not stopped, they could unravel the very fabric of creation itself.
And that in itself, I'm very much into anime, but it's hard to get a good fantasy anime that's Christian friendly. So this kind of like hits that spot.
And yet there are those who stand against it. I'm not of the Bakura, and I kill giants. But they need your help.
I'm a gardener, not a warrior.
You are a celestial prince, much more than simply a gardener. If you ignore the chaos now, soon it
I'm
will
already
be
in love with
crouching
it.
at your door.
That's not one of our portals. We have to protect the sea at any cost. The darkness is spreading. It seeks to consume you. But you are not alone. There is hope. I will stand with you, unshaken by the shadow's grasp. I am a celestial guardian, defender of creation, a light that pierces the darkness. I am Gabriel.
May we never be shaken.
May we never fall.
Oh, that February 12th. Oh, that looks so good. Good. Is it a series? Or is it a... Oh, I'm hoping so bad that it's a series. Oh, geez. Okay, let's pause this. No. Go back to it. Let's go back to it. Okay. Does it say anything about it? Oh yeah, it's a series. Oh, I'm so, oh geez, so excited. Oh, that looked, oh, so good. Oh, geez, Louise. I'm really praying that they do it right because fantasy is like so, it just takes one wrong move for it to be like, I can't watch it. Like, I have to be careful with stuff like this. I'm sure I'm not the only one, and it strongly has to do with the fact that I fell into the new age. So it's kind of like how drinking is not a sin, like getting drunk is, but for an alcoholic or someone who has issues with substance abuse, even just taking a sip, it's a sin for them. Or at least for someone, I'm sure I don't want to like dictate other people's convictions, but I mean, at least for the strong majority, even just taking a sip, willing, like not like consciously, like, I'm not gonna say if you like grab a drink not realizing there's alcohol. I'm not saying that's a sin. That's not a sin. But I mean, as far as if you are like taking a sip of alcohol when you know you're not supposed to because of the struggle, that's kind of how it is with me with fantasy. I have to be careful, like as far as in not watching or entertaining myself with certain things of fantasy and spiritual aspects, if it's done in a promotion of magic type deal. Like, I won't mention who it is. I can't even remember exactly who it was, but there was like one author. I won't get into it too much, like as far as in I just couldn't be comfortable reading their stuff. Like, I was going to read their stuff, like it was like a Christian author, and I was just like, oh, this is fun. But there was an aspect of their stuff that was too close to New Age, and I won't say explicitly like, oh, that is horrible, they shouldn't be doing that. At the same time, for me personally, that's not something I can, like, I won't discount them. Like, it's not enough for me to, like, that's their journey with God. So maybe there's more to it than I know, but it was enough to where I'm just like, no, I could never read their stuff, even though it being Christian, because that's just feels icky. So if I watch or entertain myself with stuff that is against my conviction manners, it just feels icky, and I'm just like, I won't promote it, I won't do any of that. So I'm really hoping this fits the bill in the best way. It looks like it could, but as far as in and I'm not even saying strictly because I got into New Age, everything like is going to fall towards bad. No, on my behalf. Sometimes it's just like when you go into bad stuff, sometimes you see things that the enemy has blinded others to, if that makes sense. Like, there's just certain things that because I was blinded and had to have that lifted off of me, it's like I can't unsee what's there. And sometimes I might be seeing too much into things because I know how the enemy works in some areas. And at the same time, it's because those blinders are off that sometimes I can see things, and I know a lot of other people can speak to it or into this that have gone through the New Age and have come out of it. You just, especially this world is very much, I'm not going to say everything about it. Every little thing is like a spiritual thing, but it's very intertwined, we'll say the least. So it's very, like, it's less often than not that there's going to be something that is going to be done that is like, has an effect on the spiritual side. So as far as in like before I got into the New Age, I was writing things about like stones and stuff like that I thought would be fun. Like, I was very much getting into fantasy in my own stuff, talking about different things about like godly magic and stuff like that. But then when I got into the New Age and got out of it, the Lord was kind of like, hey, no, that is big no. You don't need to be doing that. And so it's like I had to take a huge step back, and I had to, like, I don't want to implement that in my stuff. I don't want to implement watching that kind of stuff, like, as far as, and you have to be very careful. And I will say, like, a strong push towards falling into it originally was to do with the fact of I didn't think it was as serious as it was. It started out with one baby step after baby step until I was fully in there, and I'm just like, you'd be surprised how easy it is to fall into something because you're ignorant about it, and you're trying to do good stuff. Like, I had always an active imagination growing up, and I very much enjoyed stuff like Harry Potter and trying to think of things, but as far as in just like fantasy and stuff like that, fairies and mermaids and stuff like that. And then I struggle with depression. I've gotten a huge hold of it. It does not affect me nearly as bad as it used to when I was younger. But because of that, I got into yoga to kind of like help, because I always heard like if you get into yoga, like it helps with your depression, it helps with your mental state, and I wanted to try to do that to kind of find a solution that could help benefit me without taking medication, because I don't like taking medication, and I just felt like I literally was to the point to where I was 2 seconds away from going to go get on medication, and that was like my breaking point to where I knew I had to find something to do. And so that's what pushed me wanting to do good with my mental health, is what pushed me into getting into the new age. But it was just one baby step at a time. And I'm not saying that is what it was, my ignorance of exactly how interconnected everything was, because I was always told you can separate the spiritual aspect of yoga from the physical aspect, but then that slowly seeped in because of the way I am wired. I was like, I started doing it, it made me feel good, and then I started going into the spiritual aspect and going into a lot of things, and then just like the enemy will slowly start to turn things in your mind by maybe not necessarily making you numb to it, but blind to it, to where it's like, oh, okay, so you see how this little step is good? It's kind of like how the enemy talked to Eve about the fruit. She misunderstood, or like was either like in her mind she said, or in her mind she had it set a certain way of certain rules for the fruit. We don't know if she was told that by Adam or she made up the rule. All we know is she had it in her mind, and she vocalized that to the enemy of, I can't even touch it. Like, that was never told to her. As far as I'm from God, that was never a rule. And because that little baby step of, well, this isn't technically wrong, and you see how it's not doing anything to you, pushed more into an easier grip of, okay, well, if I can do this and I thought I couldn't, maybe I can take a bite of it and it's not going. Like, you have to be careful of how small things can be, and how those, the same way you can grow by taking baby steps, like by just taking 10 seconds of space to keep you from getting angry, turning to a minute of space, of like how the same way you can grow into being a better person by taking baby steps is the same way that you can find yourself on the other end of declining and going into darkness by taking baby steps, because you aren't taking note, and many times not even understanding that that is what you're doing, until eventually you are full blown into a situation of like, how'd I get in here? Because I was so deep into new age, and then I'm just thinking like, getting out of it, I realized how deep I was, but getting into it, every bit of steps I took, it was never a conscious decision of, I'm doing this and disobeying God. It was, I'm doing this because this is going to benefit my relationship with God, benefit myself. But coming out of it, all I'm like, it's when you come out of something like that, you just see things better. And so because of that, I try very hard to both promote being careful of what you consume, especially when it comes to the promotion of magic and sexual content and just sinful stuff in general. Like, you have to be so careful of even just what, like I said, just what you consume, what you watch, what you read, what you listen to, what everything you put in will cultivate and come out one way or another. So I try to both do that for myself, do that, help others, and just like, so this, I pray, is very much a good fantasy. But like I said, even just knowing myself, having full good intentional aspects of my writing has always been Christian. And I don't even say the quotations like it was Christian, but it wasn't. But as far as, and I had full intention of putting Christian stuff, but it was intertwined with stuff that wasn't Christian. Other people do the same thing because we're human, so we don't always see the aspects, and we sometimes can put something in our stuff that we don't realize is wrong because we aren't seeing, like, the enemy can work through good people, So if you are ignorant to something, the enemy can put something like just a symbol. You could be an artist and just put a symbol in your work that you think, oh, this is pretty, but the enemy might have put it in your mind to lead you there. So that's why you always have to pray over your work. Pray over like every bit of everything you do. It needs to be a form of worship and connected with God and doing it for God and with God, because the enemy could easily, you don't know everything about this world, this universe. So you can easily be influenced by something without realizing it. And I'm hoping, praying, it looks like they have full intent on doing this in the proper way. I pray that that is the case, because we are always needing some good content for Christians, and especially being fantasy. Like, I am very much a person to where I don't think Christian stuff should be boring. I think it should be very entertaining, because we are beings that crave entertainment. We just have to be careful of the entertainment we consume and lend ourselves to. And so this being Christian, hopefully it comes out the other side well done. But yes, that is it. And I thank you all for staying. And this turned out a lot longer than I was assuming it was going to be. But yes, thank you for staying even through the rant. I pray blessings upon you all. Bid you all adieu. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It is night for me, so good night to you. Goodbye.